In a world that often seems consumed by the rush of daily life, it's easy to forget the simple power of kindness. But what if I told you that a single, selfless act could start a chain reaction, touching lives in ways we never imagined? Today, we're about to hear a story about how one young girl's compassion led to something much bigger, something that transformed an entire community. Her name is Emma. She's just 10 years old, with a heart as big as the town she calls home. A small, tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone's name. Emma's life is simple. She's not rich in material possessions, but she is rich in something far more valuable: empathy. Emma spends most of her days at school, where she excels in her studies, not because she's trying to impress anyone, but because she genuinely loves learning. When she's not in school, you'll find her helping around the house or spending time with her little brother, always looking out for him like a second mother. Her family doesn't have much, but they have a bond that is unbreakable, and Emma carries that sense of responsibility and care into every part of her life. Emma's kindness isn't something she learned from books or even from the advice of adults. It's instinctive. She knows, in her young heart, that the world is full of people who need help, and sometimes all it takes is the smallest act of love to change someone's day. And yet, it's not just the people around her who take notice. Someone far more unexpected has been watching from the shadows, someone who has the power to change her world entirely. This is a story about kindness that didn't just make a difference. It ignited a spark that spread, touching lives far beyond Emma's imagination. And it all started with a simple act of generosity, done by a girl who believed that even the smallest gestures mattered. Sometimes, it's the smallest acts of kindness that can spark the greatest change. And Emma's story is proof of that. In a region often overlooked by larger cities, the town of Willow Creek struggles to keep its head above water. Despite its scenic views, its quiet charm, and the warmth of its people, the town has faced more than its fair share of hardships. The industries that once supported the community have long since faded, leaving behind empty factories, abandoned storefronts, and a sense of uncertainty that lingers in the air. The school, where Emma spends her days, is a testament to the town's dwindling resources. The classrooms are overcrowded, textbooks are outdated, and the walls, though filled with student artwork, are starting to show signs of wear and tear. Despite the best efforts of teachers and staff, the school struggles to provide the kind of education that the children deserve. The local library, once a place of quiet learning, is now a shadow of its former self, with shelves half empty and the heating system on the fritz during the cold winters. But it's not just the schools. The community center, the one place where residents could come together for events, has been closed for months. The building's foundation has cracked, and repairs are expensive. The town's budget is tight, and there's little room for any kind of investment in the future. Willow Creek has become a place where the residents, though hopeful, can't help but feel like they're just hanging on, waiting for something, anything, to change. Yet, there's a new hope, a vision of what could be, a dream of a revitalized town, where the kids have access to better resources, where families feel supported, where everyone, no matter their background, can feel proud of where they live. But to make this dream a reality, Willow Creek needs someone with vision, someone who can breathe life back into this place. And that brings us to Benjamin Hale. Benjamin Hale is a name known to few in Willow Creek, though his wealth is anything but a secret. He's a successful entrepreneur with a string of investments and businesses in nearby cities. His fortune is impressive, and his reputation, though powerful, is distant. Hale doesn't frequent local events or mingle with the community. His life revolves around boardrooms, private meetings, and endless transactions. People in Willow Creek know him as a man who is out of touch with their struggles, a man whose generosity, if it exists, is never seen in their town. To the people of Willow Creek, Hale represents everything that's wrong with the world outside of their town. Someone who has the power to help, but chooses not to. He's never shown an interest in the day-to-day lives of the people who live here. In fact, his name is only mentioned in passing, a quiet whisper when someone talks about the donations he makes to distant charity foundations or his latest business deal. Hale's wealth has always been something that feels unreachable, an island in a sea of small-town challenges. But what most people don't know is that, deep down, Benjamin Hale is beginning to feel the weight of his wealth. He's built his empire, yes, but there's an emptiness inside him, a growing sense that all the money in the world can't buy the one thing he needs, a sense of purpose. His name appears on donation lists, his face can be found in the social circles of the city, but in his heart, he longs for something more meaningful. One morning, Hale hears the name of Willow Creek in passing, a report on local news about the state of the community center. It's a short, almost dismissive mention, but something about the name resonates with him. A small town, struggling, with people who still hope. And for the first time in a long while, Benjamin Hale wonders if there's more he could be doing. If he could be doing something real, something that matters. He doesn't act on it right away, of course. There are meetings to attend, deals to close, and endless emails demanding his attention. But deep within him, a seed is planted. He doesn't know it yet, but that seed will soon grow into something much more significant. Something that will bring him to the heart of Willow Creek, and into the life of a young girl who, in her own quiet way, is about to change everything. In the distance, the town continues to face its struggles, but with each passing day, that spark of hope grows brighter, unnoticed by most, but not by everyone. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Emma's life would take a turn she hadn't anticipated. The town was beginning to prepare for the upcoming winter, and people were feeling the pressure. The economy had hit its hardest point, and the cold months ahead would only bring more hardship. Emma, though only 12, had a heart that saw beyond the difficulties. She didn't need to be told how bad things were. She could feel it in the quiet glances between her parents and the worried expressions of her neighbors. On that particular afternoon, Emma was on her way home from school when she passed by the Decker family's house. The Deckers were new to Willow Creek. They'd moved in just a few months ago, escaping a larger city's high costs. The house they rented was small and modest, with chipped paint and an overgrown lawn that was never quite tidy. Emma noticed Mrs. Decker standing outside, her arms crossed as she stared at a pile of broken-down furniture in front of the house. The woman looked exhausted, her face drawn and tired. Emma hesitated for a moment before crossing the street to approach her. Mrs. Decker didn't look up at first, but when she did, her eyes softened upon seeing Emma standing there. It was clear she hadn't noticed the girl walking by. Emma, gently, "Hi, Mrs. Decker. Are you okay?" Mrs. Decker let out a heavy sigh and wiped her brow before offering a tired smile. Mrs. Decker, "Oh, Emma, it's been a rough week. I was hoping to sell some of this stuff so we could buy a few things we really need for the winter, but, well, nobody has the money. It's been like that for a while now. Just trying to keep my head above water." Emma looked at the furniture, then back at Mrs. Decker. Without a second thought, she spoke with a quiet but determined voice. "Emma, what if we had a yard sale? I can help you set it up, and maybe we could get a few people to come by. I'm sure people in town would be happy to help." Mrs. Decker's eyes widened in surprise. She shook her head, not sure what to say. Mrs. Decker, "Oh, Emma, I don't want to trouble anyone. People here have enough on their plates already. Emma, interrupting gently, "It won't be a trouble. I think people would want to help. I know I would. Let me talk to some of my friends and neighbors. Maybe we can make this work." Mrs. Decker stood speechless for a moment, clearly moved. Emma smiled brightly, her youthful optimism unwavering. Within hours, Emma had put her plan into motion. She didn't have much in the way of resources, but what she had was a determination that was as strong as steel. She gathered her friends, talked to her parents, and even went door to door, explaining what she was trying to do. At first, the responses were skeptical. After all, the town hadn't seen a lot of charity events in recent years. But Emma wasn't deterred. With every door she knocked on, she became more resolute. By the time the weekend rolled around, the front yard of the Decker family house was transformed. What had been an overgrown lawn was now filled with tables covered in secondhand goods, clothes, toys, kitchenware, and other small items that were now priced to sell. Emma stood at the front, directing people to different sections of the sale with a quiet confidence that seemed beyond her years. It wasn't long before a small crowd had gathered. Some people were there to shop, but others were simply there to support. The small but steady stream of people filtered in and out, exchanging goods for what little money they could spare. Every sale made was a small victory, one more step toward helping the Deckers. Among the visitors was Mr. Thompson, the town's local mechanic. He was known for being a man of few words, but he'd lived in Willow Creek his whole life, and everyone knew that when Mr. Thompson showed up, it meant something. He spent a good while browsing the tables before quietly placing an old toaster oven on the counter, his weathered hands gently counting out a few crumpled bills. Mr. Thompson, gruffly, but with warmth, "Good to see someone around here trying to make a difference. It's been a while since anyone thought to do something like this." Emma, grinning, "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Every little bit helps." As the afternoon wore on, more and more people stopped by, some to buy, others to donate. It wasn't about the money. It was about the unity, the sense of community that had been missing for far too long. By the end of the day, the yard was nearly empty, and the table was covered in a few remaining items. Mrs. Decker had been so touched by the outpouring of support that she had trouble finding the words to express her gratitude. Mrs. Decker, teary-eyed, I don't know what to say. You've really done something special here, Emma. Thank you so much. I don't think we would have made it through this winter without this." Emma smiled, her face glowing with a quiet pride. For her, this was never about recognition or praise. It was simply about helping. She had given what she could, and in doing so, had inspired others to do the same. As the day came to a close, Emma walked home with her parents, her heart light. The yard sale had raised enough money to help the Deckers through the winter. But the impact went beyond the money. It had sparked something deeper, a renewed sense of community. People who had been isolated in their struggles now felt connected, reminded that, even in the hardest times, they weren't alone. Little did Emma know, her small act of kindness had already begun to ripple outward, touching lives in ways she couldn't have imagined. It was a moment of selflessness, one that would soon find its way to someone else, a man whose life, at that very moment, was beginning to shift in ways he couldn't yet understand. As the days passed, the small town began to feel a subtle shift in the air. The yard sale, initially seen as just another modest event, became something much more. It wasn't the trinkets or the worn-out furniture that stood out in the eyes of the townspeople. It was the unspoken sense of unity that seemed to rise from the very heart of the event. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves now found themselves walking over to the yard sale to offer something more than just a smile or a few dollars. One by one, they pulled together donations of their own. Clothes, books, even small appliances. The once empty yard filled with a growing collection of goods. It was clear that people were eager to help, not because they had to, but because they wanted to give back to the cause that had been sparked by a simple act of kindness. At first, it was small gestures. Someone offering to bake cookies for the yard sale, or an elderly neighbor donating a box of knickknacks that had been gathering dust. But as the event went on, something even more powerful began to happen. Neighbors, who had never spoken before, began to chat. They talked about how they could help one another beyond just this one event. The sense of community, long dormant in this small town, slowly began to resurface. In one home, a single mother who had been struggling to make ends meet heard about the yard sale. Inspired by the young girl's selflessness, she began organizing a group of friends to fix up her house and offer it as a place where families could come to gather for meals or find assistance. She didn't have much, but she had enough to share, and she knew that her efforts could make a difference. Soon, others followed suit, offering time, food, or even helping with home repairs. The community began to function like a family once again. At the same time, news of the yard sale and the young girl's remarkable kindness spread beyond the town's borders. It reached the ears of someone who hadn't paid much attention to the town before. A local philanthropist, known for their vast wealth, but equally known for their distant and reserved personality. This individual had built an empire but had never once engaged with the town outside of their occasional charitable donations, many of which were done anonymously. They lived in an elegant mansion on the outskirts, far from the hustle and bustle of the community, content in their isolation. It wasn't until a friend mentioned the young girl's actions that the philanthropist first took notice. "Did you hear about the yard sale in town? It's more than just a sale. It's become a symbol of hope," the friend had said, their voice tinged with admiration. Apparently, the young girl who started it all has sparked something. It's bringing people together in a way that hasn't happened in years." The philanthropist listened, intrigued, but remained silent. They were known for their business acumen, not for their involvement in community affairs. "Interesting," they had said nonchalantly, not giving away much. Still, the idea of a single act of kindness creating such a powerful ripple effect left them puzzled. It seemed almost too simple. A child's act of goodness had somehow managed to spark a chain reaction in a town that had long since lost its sense of unity. For the first time in years, the philanthropist felt a tug at something deep within. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even a spark of something unfamiliar. But just as quickly, it was replaced with hesitation. Could a single act of kindness really make that much of a difference? Did it even warrant their attention? Their wealth, their influence. These had always been their tools, not the power of human connection. Still, something about this story lingered with them, a nagging feeling that perhaps this was an opportunity to witness something profound. The philanthropist remained in their mansion, watching from afar, unsure of what to do next. Should they intervene? Should they offer support? Or should they remain distant, letting the town continue without their involvement? The questions lingered, unanswered, as the town continued to flourish in the wake of a young girl's selfless act. And in that moment of hesitation, the philanthropist's internal struggle was just beginning. Would they stand on the sidelines, or would the ripple of kindness inspire them to act? The philanthropist couldn't shake the thought of the young girl. Her story lingered in their mind, echoing in their thoughts as they sat alone in their grand mansion, staring out the window. The initial skepticism had faded, replaced by an unexpected sense of curiosity, something they hadn't felt in years. This small act of kindness, the kind of gesture most people might dismiss as insignificant, had ignited something deep within them. The truth was, they were moved, and they couldn't ignore it any longer. The town had been talking about her for weeks, and now, they had to see for themselves. Without fully understanding why, they made up their mind. The decision was simple. They would meet her. The following afternoon, after making a few discreet inquiries, the philanthropist drove down the narrow streets of the town to the modest area where the young girl lived. The drive was quiet, the sound of the car's engine the only noise breaking the stillness. They were approaching an unfamiliar world, a place that felt far removed from the isolated luxury of their mansion. They slowed the car as they turned the corner, and there, standing in front of a small, modest home, was the young girl, the one who had caused such a stir. She was talking to a few neighbors, smiling and laughing, as they worked together to carry bags of supplies to a nearby car. Her energy was contagious, and her presence seemed to brighten the day around her. The philanthropist paused for a moment, watching her from a distance. She looked so ordinary, so unassuming. Yet, somehow, she had managed to make an extraordinary impact. They parked the car and stepped out, trying to mask the unfamiliar feeling of vulnerability that crept up on them. It had been so long since they had engaged with anyone like this, without a sense of formality, without expectation. But as they approached, the young girl saw them, and her face lit up with a smile. "Hi there. Are you here for the yard sale?" she asked, her voice full of warmth and enthusiasm. The philanthropist was taken aback by her kindness and her genuine interest. "Actually, I came to talk to you," they said, their tone measured yet curious. The young girl blinked in surprise, but quickly nodded. "Oh, sure, I'd love to chat." She gestured to the nearby bench, inviting them to sit. "We can talk here, where it's quiet." As they sat together, the philanthropist felt an odd sense of calm settle over them, something they hadn't expected in the presence of someone so young and, in many ways, so different from the circles they were used to. The girl looked at them with earnest eyes, waiting for them to speak. "I've heard about what you've done for the community," the philanthropist began. "It's impressive. You've brought people together in ways I never thought possible." The young girl's smile softened. "I didn't do it alone. People just needed a reason to come together. You know, everyone wants to help. I just gave them a chance." The philanthropist paused, reflecting on her words. There was something so humble in her tone, something raw and unpretentious that struck them deeply. "But you had the idea," they said quietly. "You sparked it." The young girl shook her head. "I just wanted to help one family. That's all. I. The philanthropist sat back, absorbing her words. It was rare for them to meet someone so sincere, someone whose actions were driven by pure, simple intentions. For the first time in a long while, they found themselves questioning the choices they had made in their own life. "So, what made you decide to do it?" the philanthropist asked. "To step up when no one else did?" The young girl looked at them thoughtfully before responding. "I don't know. It just felt right. I saw people in need, and I thought, why not try to help? I've always been taught that if you can do something good for others, you should." The philanthropist nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. They had always believed in charity and giving, but not in this way. Not in a way that connected people on a personal level. It had always been about donations, big checks, and anonymous gestures. They had never seen the kind of impact that came from small, meaningful acts of kindness. This was different. "You've changed a lot of lives," the philanthropist said, their voice quieter now. "And you've made me think about how I can contribute in a more meaningful way." The young girl smiled again, a soft, knowing smile that seemed to carry the wisdom of someone much older than her years. Anyone can make a difference. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to start something small, and it can grow. The philanthropist's eyes grew thoughtful as they reflected on her words. For so long, they had been disconnected from the heart of what truly mattered. They had given, but only from a distance. But now, sitting next to this young girl, they realized that there was a deeper way to give. A way that came from engaging, from connecting with people in a way that was personal and genuine. As the conversation came to an end, the philanthropist stood up, their mind buzzing with new thoughts and feelings. They shook the young girl's hand, a gesture of respect and gratitude. "Thank you," they said softly. "You've taught me something important today." The young girl nodded, her face lighting up with a smile that seemed to shine even brighter. "You're welcome. I'm glad you came." As the philanthropist walked away, they felt a sense of clarity settling within them. The decision to contribute meaningfully to the town was no longer just an option. It was a responsibility. They realized that true giving wasn't about money or prestige. It was about being present, engaging with others, and offering support in ways that mattered. For the first time in years, the philanthropist felt ready to make a change, not just in their own life, but in the lives of others. And it was all because of the kindness of a young girl who had reminded them of the power of simple, selfless acts. The philanthropist had been quietly reflecting for days after that profound conversation with the young girl. What started as a simple act of kindness had snowballed into something much bigger. A force that was beginning to tug at his heartstrings in ways he hadn't anticipated. He couldn't shake the image of that young girl, standing before him with wide eyes full of hope, unafraid to speak about her dreams of a better, more connected community. Her sincerity, combined with the warmth in her voice, had awakened something within him. Realization that he could no longer stand on the sidelines. It was time to act, to stop merely watching and start contributing in a way that could truly make a difference. One evening, in the comfort of his spacious study, the philanthropist made a decision that would change everything. He picked up the phone, his fingers briefly hovering over the receiver as he made the call that would set the wheels in motion. The next morning, the town woke up to an unexpected announcement. A large donation had been made to fund the creation of a new community center, one that would serve as a hub for education, support, and recreation for families. The philanthropist's contribution would provide scholarships for local students, offer job training for adults, and support various local initiatives. It was a monumental gesture, a gift that would ripple through the town for generations to come. News of the donation spread quickly, and the excitement was palpable. Neighbors gathered in groups to discuss the incredible news. Some were in disbelief, while others couldn't wait to see how their lives would change with the newfound opportunities. The community had been waiting for something like this for so long, and now, it seemed, their hopes were finally being realized. But the true magic of the moment came when the philanthropist invited the young girl to the groundbreaking ceremony for the community center. As she walked up to the stage, her eyes wide with astonishment, the philanthropist stood by her side, his arm gently placed on her shoulder. The crowd erupted into applause, not just for the philanthropist's generous donation, but for the young girl whose simple act of kindness had started it all. The young girl, holding a microphone, stood before the crowd, her voice trembling with emotion. She spoke from the heart, telling everyone about how she had always dreamed of helping others, of bringing the community together. And now, with the philanthropist's help, her dream was becoming a reality. Her words were heartfelt and full of gratitude. She spoke of the power of kindness and how even the smallest acts could lead to remarkable change. As she looked out over the crowd, she realized that her small effort had sparked something much bigger, something that was about to transform her town in ways she never could have imagined. The philanthropist, standing beside her, felt a sense of peace that he had never known before. He was no longer a distant observer. He was now part of something much larger, a community working together for a common cause. His contribution had created a ripple effect, and in that moment, he realized that he had found something he had been missing for so long: purpose. As the ceremony drew to a close, the young girl and the philanthropist exchanged a smile, a quiet acknowledgement of the incredible journey they had both taken together. She had set the wheels of change in motion, and he had followed through with his big gesture, all thanks to the spark of inspiration she had ignited. And in the weeks and months that followed, the community center became a beacon of hope, a place where dreams were nurtured, families were supported, and the bonds between neighbors were stronger than ever. The young girl's dream had come true, and in the process, she had shown everyone the true power of kindness, the kind that doesn't ask for anything in return but leaves a lasting impact on the world. The philanthropist, once a distant figure, was now a respected member of the community, his connection to the people deeper than ever before. And as for the young girl, her heart was full, knowing that she had started something far greater than herself. She had sparked a change that would continue to inspire others for years to come. The town, once a place marked by struggle and a sense of stagnation, was now alive with possibilities. The community center, a symbol of the new hope that had blossomed from one small act of kindness, had become a hub of activity. People from all walks of life were gathering there daily, their faces reflecting a renewed energy and a deep sense of connection. The once quiet streets now buzzed with the sound of laughter, learning, and cooperation. Families who had once worried about their children's education now saw the opportunity for them to thrive. Parents, who had faced countless barriers in their attempts to improve their lives, were now finding new pathways to success through job training programs and support networks. The community center offered a sanctuary, a place where individuals could come together to help each other, share their struggles, and celebrate their victories. The young girl, once an ordinary child with an extraordinary heart, had become a local hero. Her name was spoken with admiration and respect throughout the town. People would stop her on the street to thank her, or simply offer a warm smile, knowing that her actions had sparked the change that they were now living. As she walked through the streets, she could feel the shift in the air. People were more connected, more compassionate, and more eager to help one another. It was as if the donation had planted seeds of generosity in every corner of the town, and those seeds were now blossoming into a thriving, supportive community. One afternoon, a group of local residents gathered at the community center to share their stories. The philanthropist, who had now become a regular presence in the town, stood alongside the young girl, both of them listening intently as community members spoke about the impact of the center on their lives. One man, a father of 3, shared how the center's after-school program had transformed his children's futures. "Before this," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I was afraid my kids wouldn't have the opportunities they deserved. Now, they're thriving. They're learning things I never even imagined they'd get a chance to learn." A woman, who had recently completed a job training course at the center, spoke up next. "This place gave me the confidence I needed to pursue a career. I've got a job now, and I'm supporting my family." None of this would have been possible without that young girl's dream and the generosity of that philanthropist. The philanthropist, who had been quietly listening, exchanged a glance with the young girl. It was a silent acknowledgement of how far they had come, from that first selfless act of kindness to the incredible transformation they were witnessing now. As the conversation continued, others shared how their lives had been touched by the center. The old woman who had lived in isolation for years now found herself surrounded by a network of friends. A young couple, struggling to make ends meet, spoke about the financial assistance programs that had helped them stabilize their lives. A group of teenagers described how the center's mentorship programs had opened their eyes to new career possibilities, setting them on paths they'd never thought possible. The testimonials weren't just about the physical transformation of the town. They were about the emotional and psychological shift that had taken place. The sense of hopelessness that had once clouded the streets had been replaced by optimism and belief in a brighter future. People were no longer just surviving. They were thriving together. The young girl, sitting quietly among the crowd, looked around at the people whose lives had been touched by her actions. She had set something into motion that no one could have predicted, and now she was watching as it unfolded in ways she couldn't have imagined. The ripple effect of her kindness had grown far beyond her expectations, and it was clear that this was just the beginning. The philanthropist, once a distant figure in the community, was now fully immersed in the transformation. He was no longer the quiet observer, but a part of the fabric of the town. He had come to understand that true wealth wasn't just about money. It was about giving back, about being a part of something larger than oneself. And as he looked around at the smiling faces, he knew that his decision to contribute had been one of the most fulfilling choices he had ever made. The town, now united, had created something truly remarkable. What began as a simple act of kindness had blossomed into a lasting legacy. A legacy of hope, generosity, and community spirit that would endure for generations. The young girl's dream had come true, and in the process, she had inspired an entire town to believe in the power of small acts of kindness. And as the sun set on the horizon, the community continued to grow and flourish, each day a testament to the power of one person's selflessness to change the world. As the story draws to a close, the camera gently pans across the town, now a symbol of hope, transformation, and community spirit. The streets that were once quiet and filled with uncertainty are now alive with connection and warmth. The community center stands tall, a beacon of everything that has changed for the better. The sound of laughter, learning, and collaboration fills the air, and it's clear that the spirit of kindness has taken root, blooming in every corner of the town. Kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives. It can set off a chain reaction, bringing people together, healing wounds, and building bridges where there were once walls. It's the small, selfless acts that often have the greatest impact. And sometimes, just one act of kindness can change the course of an entire community. In this town, a young girl's simple desire to help has transformed not only her life, but the lives of everyone around her. And the journey doesn't stop here. The scene transitions to the young girl and the philanthropist standing side by side at the community center. They share a quiet moment, their eyes reflecting the bond they've formed. A bond built on generosity, humility, and a shared vision for a brighter future. The philanthropist places a hand on the young girl's shoulder, a gesture of pride and acknowledgement. The girl smiles up at him, her heart full of gratitude and fulfillment, knowing that together, they've made a lasting difference. Together, they've shown us that no matter who you are, or where you come from, every act of kindness counts. And when you give with an open heart, you inspire others to do the same. This is how change happens, one small step at a time. The screen then shows scenes of the community thriving. Families walking together, children playing, and people of all ages helping one another. It's a visual reminder of the lasting legacy left by one simple act. We hope this story has inspired you to look for opportunities to spread kindness in your own life. You don't need to be wealthy, famous, or have all the answers to make a difference. Sometimes, all it takes is one small action, one moment of generosity, to create a ripple effect that can change everything. If this story touched your heart, we encourage you to share it with others. And remember, your kindness has the potential to make the world a better place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Together, we can continue to spread positivity, one moment at a time. Let's keep the chain of kindness going. Take that first step today.